Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right there, Glenn?
Can you get upstairs? You want to hang down there? You want to hang down there with that microphone? You good? All right. I will do roll call. President is here. Vice President.
Here.
Secretary. Yep. I'll wait for Glenn to get to the mic. Commissioner at Large Chris.
Here.
Commissioner.
Here.
Keith will not be here. I'm sure Amy will be here. She's going to be late probably. So that's that. Kim sent out the minutes for last month's meetings. Did everybody have a chance to read the minutes? I did. All right. I'd like to make a motion to vote last month's minutes into the report.
As long as we don't mind typos, I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
For the note, that was the emergency meeting. Keith still owes us the notes on the regular meeting, so he said he'd pass that on, so we will put that in. We're trying to spend the most of tonight going over the workshop items. I apologize for the raucous crowd out there tonight, but it's going to be a little boring. We'll just say page 1, page 2. I promise you it won't take more than 5 or 6 minutes. If somebody dissents, then we'll stop at that item and discuss it. So we'll keep our individual board reports to a pithy and focus our time on there. For President's report, this is the time of year where basically we start asking for money from our sponsors. And this year, Dick's is going to do something a little bit different, and I wanted to bring that up to everyone's attention. Before, Dick would give us those big bucket of baseballs that were good for batting cages and whatnot. They're actually going to give us real baseballs this year from A.O. Smith. So we're probably going to get about 30 dozen, some tees, a couple bags, scorebooks, some softballs too. So versus us, we can look at these baseballs and see if we want to give them on coaches or what we want to do. I think they're a few dollars more than what they are from Rawlings, but we'll sit down later and compare that. But anyhow, all that stuff is being done right now, and as well as registration. So we'll keep that to the President's report. Being new, don't really have a Vice President's report, a week on the job slacker. So we'll bypass you. And oh, look, the next one's Treasurer's report, and Keith is not here. So we'll have to review that the next meeting when Keith comes back as well. Move on to Glenn on the Commissioner's report.
Just getting ready for spring. We're going through a lot of things right now. Fall came to a close pretty good. Not a lot going on. I believe everybody's just getting ready for spring. It's not really a whole lot. This is our void.
So, all right. Amy's not here for softball. She comes back, we'll give her some feedback. Kim, do you have anything on the Secretary report?
Nope.
All right, we are moving on time here. Village report. Steve, what do you have?
Do you guys have a date for opening day?
We do. I guess you want that, right?
Yes.
So we are going to have this on Friday night again, on the 22nd. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a home run competition, Steve.
February.
And February 22nd. The games will begin on the 23rd, just like we did in the fall, but they had some good ideas. They were talking about on one field doing some activities. I think they talked about who could put the biggest bird mark on the tennis courts. It would be one of those things. I'm joking. No. We're going to do some outdoor things, interactive things. I imagine 6:30. We'll finalize that and probably done at 8:30. So there'll be a couple fields scuffed up. Ed's going to run the home run thing. Ed, what fields do you want for the home run?
6, 1, 2, and 4.
1 and 2, special needs is running. It's Friday nights.
Oh, it's that time of year. 1 and 2?
Yeah, it just depends how many. Only one of them will be used. Usually it's 2, but we reserve 1 and 2 initially so that.
That's all right. I can use 8.
8. So 1, 6, 8.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? 6, 4. Special needs. Would you guys want to incorporate them into opening night?
Absolutely.
I'm sure I'll work around. I'm actually running it now. but I'll try to work their schedule around to maybe they don't play a game that night, but they participate in the activities there.
Okay.
So, also, can you send out like a message to the coaches, see if anybody's willing to help coach the special needs? We're always looking for some coaches. It's just Friday nights for like an hour, just for the games. There's no practices or anything like that. So, and it's January 25th through, I think, March 8th. So it's not a very long season for them. So I'll send you all that, but if you can send a message out seeing if anybody's willing to do that. So, and then January meeting, I'm sure you guys are gonna change that.
We're gonna change it, it won't be the second. Actually, let's pick a date right now. So, how does the week of the 14th, like the 15th? That's a Tuesday. You wanna check to see if Village Hall's available?
I'll check. January 15.
Shh, here she comes.
For the record, Amy's now here.
That's it. That's all.
Oh, my thing's
Okay. So we're moving in a good pace. We've gone through all the reports, except for the softball report. Is anything you want to add to the softball report for the month? No? All right, great. I'd like to make a motion to accept all the reports in this month's meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody have any comments on old business? Okay, on the, what was that, Kim? No? Okay.
I was turning my page.
All right. Let's move on. Last night we had a workshop, and to move this thing along, what we're going to do is just go through the rules and only highlight the page where there's a change. I promise you this won't take long. There were a couple items that we missed originally, and Chris added them in, but I don't have his copy. One, we talked about no Friday practices. So the way we'll do this is, if you disagree with an item, say I disagree, then we'll stop and take a vote on that item, and then we'll keep on moving, and then at the end, we'll vote all of them in that we're in total agreement on. And that way we can keep this thing flowing. We also mentioned in 10U, the top 10 can play up in the 12U division if they need to borrow a player, with the 10U playing their game as a priority.
Top 10 as in,
First two
per the
rounds.
evaluation.
Yeah, whatever the first two rounds are, whatever, maybe the first two rounds is probably a better way of designating that.
Okay.
All right, also in the speed-up rule, we added the pitcher in addition to the catcher when there's two outs. We also added only the manager can approach the umpire, not the manager or coach, only the manager. And we voted in playoffs for double elimination for spring. And also we eliminated the hardship since we're going to 3 freezes. So those are things I may not mention on here, but we will vote those in. Moving on to, let's see, this is page.
Chris, real quickly,
Yeah.
based on what I saw when I was going over this, the things you just mentioned there, that in the rules it said last recorded out for the catcher or pitcher, so we changed that to
Batted
last
out.
batted out.
That's batted out, right.
Don't we want it to say manager or acting manager in case the manager is not at the fields that day?
Yeah, if you can, yeah, acting manager,
All right. Yeah, okay.
put that verbiage in there. So as Chris is diligently penciling that in, we'll move on to page 3. Recreational seasons were defined by months. He put from September to November, since before it was August. Also, Cal Ripken and the 6U is now going into AA is 3 and 4. AAA will be 5 and 6. With the notation says exceptions to age limitations will be considered based upon the situation or merit. Okay? Moving on to page 4, open registration, reduced from 3 to 1. We will have a minimum of at least 1 open walk-up registrations per season. Moving down to page 4, we've eliminated the verbiage for hardship cases since they're now being covered under 3 freezes. Also, we eliminated some verbiage about if you do get a scholarship from the league, you have to pay it off through labor. We're not going to leave that in there. That's not necessary. This is page 5. Chris added some verbiage into the catcher on the equipment. It says the catcher must wear a helmet with full ear protection, body protector, protective cup for male players, shin guards, and a face mask with throat protector. The throat protector, which is part of or attached to the mask, must adequately protect the catcher, and I believe most of our masks have that.
So to be clear, I didn't add that. That was already in there. I highlighted that to point out that, because last night we decided that for 8U, we want to make sure that all catchers dress out. Or 6U, whatever it was. I was just pointing out that
It's in the rules.
it's in the rules.
It's in the rules.
I mean, according to baseball rules, you have to have a catcher, and according to this, you have to wear the adequate equipment. So
Okay.
there you go.
Moving on to page 6, selection of manager coaches. We've eliminated some verbiage about AAA and AA in there. That's on page 6. Moving on to page 7, evaluation rating sheet. Again, we've eliminated that AA and AAA criterion that we've run on before. Moving down to page 9, we have verbiage on hardships that are eliminated since we are going to 3 freezes. Okay, now we're going to scroll down a little bit more. I know this is exciting out there for you.
It's page 13.
Okay, did I miss page 13?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Page 13 is what I added in for what you discussed about the,
Okay.
yeah, don't worry about it.
All right, page 17, there was on the All-Star nomination, we cleaned up some things in case, before it said there was a max of 5, and we talked about if there was 3 or less teams. What Chris has here is each manager will submit nominations to their division director for their All-Stars by deadline, then presented to the board of directors. When more than 3 teams are in a division, he may nominate up to 5 players from their team to participate in the evaluation. When there's 3 or less in the division, each manager may nominate as many players as they choose from their team to participate in evaluations for their division's All-Stars. That is the added verbiage. And he eliminated player nominations are to be made according to the deadline set by the board of directors.
Because it's spelled out in the one of the
Redundancy.
bullet points that I reworded, yeah.
Gotcha.
And to be clear, for each age level has an all-star team.
Yes.
Is that from 6U to 14 to 15?
Or whatever they have, yeah. Once
Okay.
you get beyond 12U, it's whatever you can make
Whatever you make it.
together. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so that's all an All-Stars travel team. We eliminated the $100 fee payable to the league. Also put in there that each travel team must submit a team roster to the league's travel coordinator before each season. That roster will be presented to the board of directors.
You missed one thing on page 18 about 2 local tournaments, down from 3 to 2.
Yes, thank you.
Which was the travel team fee page on?
Travel team, looks like 19?
Yeah, 19, yeah.
Scrolling down here pretty quickly, we're about done, mercifully. Page 26, again, some AA, AAA. We talked about in AA doing a sling. We're not going to do a sling in AA, so that verbiage was eliminated. Page 27, more specifications about where the pitching mound or where the pitching sling should be placed on the mound. That's clarified on there based on our discussions last night. Then on page 28, we have the Ed Bianco rule. And 12U, a mercy rule will now be after 4 innings. All right. I'm sorry, you wanted 6 innings, that's right.
Yeah, Bianco rule.
Yeah,
I'll be happy to put that in there.
we should honor Ed in many ways.
Yes.
So with that, that is all the, did I miss anything we covered in the workshop last night? Okay, so that is what we have. So I'd like to make a motion to accept these into our rules.
I second them.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Wow, it's 7:15. This is great. All right. All right. Okay, it's village clock, right? Okay, so we're moving on. So, registration brochures, I'd like to launch them the first of the year. What we've done in the past, how it works the best is everyone picks a school, okay? And what you do is you call the secretary or send her an email and say, I'd like to hand out brochures, can I do it? Yes. How many classes do you have? 26. What increments? 20. And then we go to our printer and they index every 26 sets, and that individual takes the school. So Chris used to do 2 schools. Which schools was
Well,
it?
I have Everglades for sure. The other one, which name escapes me, I will not be able to do anymore because my wife doesn't work there. You know, I thought I might be able to do Benoist Farms Elementary though, so maybe I can possibly still do 2.
So let's,
know.
if you can, Chris, you take that role.
Yep.
I can do Royal Palm Elementary. We all know Tracy Gogler really well. Ken, we can't use for any garden school. Who has connections in the other? And really, I think where this helps is in 6U and 8U, right? That's where we really want to grow a league is from that division.
I think Pierce Hamlet.
Kim's got Pierce Hammock.
I got Golden Grove and Western Pines.
If they put them in Western Pines,
Okay, if I can't put it, but I can get Golden
definitely
Grove for
Golden
sure.
Groves. And then HL has always been a hard one to crack.
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I can go pay for their parking lot, but other than that, it's not gonna happen.
So if everyone can do us as an action item, go find out how many of those we have in each, how many classes we have and what the increments. I think it's, the Florida rule is what, no more than 20 kids in a class?
K1, 2, it's 18, 3, 4, 5, it's 22.
So, yeah, okay, it should be at least 22 then, so we don't have to do 18 and 22, just how many classes of 22, and then we'll hand those out, okay? So thank you for that. All right, let's talk about scheduling. Ed, who else is here? Casey, you've been here for a while. Remember how the old schedule worked? How many weeks of time did you get, Casey? Remember when you got your schedule when you were coaching? Do you remember how many weeks we used to get at a time? I'll help you out, 3. Sometimes it was 2. That's how scheduling used to be. We used to get it 3 weeks at a time. You know, you got your preseason, and then right before, you got your uniforms on Friday night before opening day, and then 3 weeks at a time. Yeah, it was brutal. And imagine trying to plan for work if you do a month ahead of time. So when we went to scheduling, we put 2 schedules in because our league has grown. It is so complex to do the quadplex. And what we found out was that that was the priority, and other things got left out. And left out was interleague was done at the last minute, field director schedule, concession schedules. It got complex. And I think who's ever done scheduling for the quad, and I mean quad field 6 through 4, it doesn't change. You know, you release it, I got a conflict. Once Chris Rolfe gets ahead of it, he's going to tear it apart. Right, Chris?
Yes,
Yes.
I'll answer that for you.
Don't wait hell I'm doing scheduling, no.
So that's why we have done 2 schedulings in the past, because it's overwhelming for one person. And if one person does it, something waits to the last minute. Now, Glenn or whoever, if you feel it's compelling to go to one scheduler, let's discuss it.
I think if the 2 scheduling's the way we're gonna go, we gotta figure out a way for the 2 schedulers to communicate, because there's gaps, you know, and that's the biggest, I mean, with softball and with baseball, that was our biggest problem, was there was this, first of all, we had times that weren't right. You know, that's probably on us, the board. We gave the scheduler maybe the wrong, this is an hour and a half, this is an hour and 45, and we might have screwed up on that, which made, you know, me have teams sitting at the field like an hour, hour and a half just to play, and that was like weeks, you know, that just kept going and it never stopped. But I think that was because maybe somebody got mixed up on, you know, the timeframes.
Yeah, and I could have done, I don't know what I told Josh or
Right.
whatever, that could have happened on me.
That was probably that, and the interleague. There was some issues with the interleagues,
Oh, yeah, always is.
and the umpires were my biggest. That was like, you know, when I walked through there, that was bam, 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 bam.
So
bam.
let's table the umpires for
Okay.
a little bit and just
Okay.
focus on the schedule. What I can tell you on the scheduling, because I'm behind the scenes, is that Kim was great, Josh was great, and then if Josh couldn't get something, Kim was like, Josh, I'll do it for you. The teamwork was fantastic. And if anyone's done scheduling, it can be challenging. You know, it can be challenging. And that's why if you didn't pay someone, you got to find someone who's a sadist who wants to do it. Because then someone's going to call up and say, you got my schedule wrong. I'm working, or I've got 2 teams or whatever. So with that being said, I think because we've changed scheduling, a new schedule every season, there's been little issues here and there. So I think communication, we could pay better diligence on spring season. Ed, you're going to say something?
Yes, it has to do with interleague. I've gotten to know Tom Pastor, the president over at Phipps, for, you know, after being part of the park for so long, and I had a conversation with him about some of our teams this year not showing up for games. I just want to make sure we address to these managers this year that, number one, it looks extremely bad on Royal Palm. Number two, burning relationships with these other parks is not good because there's going to be a time when we need their help. I just think it's something that we have to make sure we input to these managers. Whether it's 10U, 12U, I don't even know if we'll do an early in 10U this year. In spring, usually we don't in spring because it's a lot larger in the spring. But I know we will in 12U and 15U. I mean, it's imperative that we represent Royal Palm and show up for these games no matter what. He told me he doesn't care if you send 7 players. He's got kids that'll fill in at any time, but not showing up to these games, especially at another park where the family show up, waiting on the other team, they don't show up. What are they going to do? They just wasted their whole day. It looks bad, and
I mean, in my 5th year of interleague, this is the first season that we've been the perpetrator for that. That happened, I guess, to a team in spring from Okie-Healy, never showed up because they played in travel tournaments. So our team was left with no game to play. So I empathize. So I think I'll reach out to Tom as well and try to,
Just
improve that
another
communication.
backup on that. I got that phone call too, and I talked to him for a while. And no matter what, we have to make sure we don't cancel any, interleague games, even if we have to send another team. One that has a bye or something. Hey,
Yeah, it's just something that I think we gotta implement into the managers' meetings this year.
Yes, absolutely.
You are representing Royal Palm. You have that on your shirt.
Especially with the 10U thing you mentioned and the stuff like that. If we have to put a team together to go play these guys, we have to go play these guys.
Yeah.
No matter what.
And I think that was it. It was an interleague game, and they didn't have enough. So.
Another thing of borrowing players. When I was a DD, and I did it in 8U, I would hand out a copy of the draft order to all the managers so they knew where every player was, so they can call up any manager and they're like, listen, I need this player for this day. So it was handed to them. It was laid out for them. They didn't have to go bothering the DDs, bothering other managers. They already knew who they can borrow and who they can call. It's an idea.
Okay.
And Chris, I'm sorry, Kim, go ahead.
It also, coming from a scheduler, from doing it, when changes are made, even if it's the 2 managers going to the DD needs to understand, we need to get across the DDs. They cannot say, yes, these changes can be made until they speak to the scheduler. Because if the scheduler may have something else going, or making one change, I talked to Glenn about it, going into that to Blue Sombrero and making one change. If it's going to be any conflict whatsoever, it doesn't save a single change that you go in there and make, and you have to start all over from scratch. So DDs can't confirm a change until they talk to the schedule and their schedule says it's a go. So that communication piece needs to be there. And I don't know if Steve or guys, Chris, if we can have maybe the manager meeting someplace where I will go on the Blue Sombrero and show people how to use Blue Sombrero, where they can go in and see all their different, because this past year they had a game schedule, they had a practice schedule, and I think some people didn't even know there was an interleague schedule they needed to be looking at. There's different things they need to be aware of on that site, and we need someone to show them how to use that to their fullest ability.
You can show just the coaches, and the coaches are responsible to show, or the managers, excuse me.
That's what I'm saying. If we show the managers, then the managers can make all that happen.
And if they can't figure it out, ask their kid. The kid will show them how to do it.
Now, in a similar vein, are there any cities that have a bad reputation that we do not want to use anymore for interleague? Like I know we had an issue in 15U with, was it Jupiter? Who was it, Chris?
Yeah, Jupiter. Actually, that's true. Jupiter didn't show up this year, which we were less than happy about for one of our games. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Let's keep that offline until the season comes. I don't want to bash another league here on videotape. But thank you for trying that. All right, just joking. Moving on here. So let's talk about the FD. And I had some thoughts here. Why do we pay field director? Well, what I can tell you is that, one, because of what concession does, we have the revenue to invest back in the league, so it doesn't take away from any activity. Last night we talked about hiring professionals or guys to come in and help on certain aspects of coaching, we can do that because of what happens in concession. I know here on the board, there's some board members who had FD assignments and didn't show up or didn't call or had a worker conflict. I can think, Chris, one time you were coming in saying, guys, can someone help out? I've got a work conflict. And what can you do? And then it falls upon him to distribute the baseballs and unpay, and they're not geared to do it. So just like with concession, we have a deposit to try to incentivize people to do it. By paying people to do it, it incentivizes someone to go there and do that. If you're a board member and don't want to get paid, Wendy will tell you, you can turn it down and donate it back to the league, which happens. So for those reasons, that's why we've paid field director, because when we have to depend on people to show up to do the volunteering position, we get let down. So I'll leave the floor open if anybody wants to make comments about that.
From what I've read and the very little research I've done, I don't think as board members of a nonprofit we can benefit from our board position monetarily. And if board members make up the majority of the FD schedule, we're benefiting from our jobs. We're benefiting from being on the board. If we're going to pay FDs, then we need to offer it to the public, not just board members. And I'm not talking about board members and 2 umpires. You need to make it out there. Because if it's only us, we're benefiting from these positions.
We're not creating these things to line our pockets, and the $25 is not a whole heck of a lot of money.
I don't think we can make
Yeah.
money at all,
The
unless
other-
I'm mistaken.
Well, I mean, if you don't have people to fill that position, and the other aspect of it is you're handling cash.
Right.
So you just don't want everybody to walk up and handle cash. So we have to be discreet in terms of where it is. You know, all these things have to be considered.
Glenn, I haven't done the research at all, but just ethically, I've always turned the money down.
Right. It's the bottom line is being a board member is a volunteer position. In our bylaws, one of our responsibilities as board members is to be FDs. Not get paid for being FDs, to be FDs.
In your first session, you volunteer.
No, it's period.
Well, that's how it says. And then, like I said, then after that, the way we voted it in on field director was you nominate one session, then the next one you're eligible. You can either get the pay, you can donate back to the league, or donate to a future registration.
Unless I'm mistaken, that was FDAs, that wasn't FDs.
Mind if I see that? I don't remember seeing anything in there regarding that, but I could be mistaken.
Well, we did. I've sent some email. We voted it in. And
Yeah,
I could pull an email to you, Chris, and send that to you.
That was when we did the FDAs, but I thought FDAs were gonna help the FDs. I didn't know the FDAs were taking the place of the FDs.
To be honest, that's where it is now. But I think as we've done things, we've evolved. And one thing I want to do is I think we need to add a beefed up element to umpiring to the field director. And I think what we should do, and I'm proposing tonight, that every day we have a game, if there's games, multiple games scheduled, we should have an umpire being paid to be the rules guy, to make sure our umpires aren't being harassed in 6U. If there's any question, just pay him an umpire's fee for the night. He's just like an assignment, have an umpire's assignment.
So what is the role of the field director themselves? Because my assumption, I'll just say what my assumption was, is as an umpire, if I had an issue, I'm calling the field director. Like, hey, this coach isn't listening. I've
Sure.
tossed him. He's not leaving. Hey, field director, let's go here. Or, hey, there's a mom down here saying that there's a dad down there cussing because his kid's not playing, whatever the case may be. So in my opinion, a field director should be somebody that's going to be able to handle those issues. I understand that we want to help out with some of the younger crowd and everything like that, but it needs to be somebody that's knowledgeable of the baseball rules. Somebody that can handle those situations, and they're not going to cringe and have to turn and still rely on Wendy or you or whoever may be walking around the park.
So when you look at the vastness of our park, that's logistically impossible, okay? Then you look at, let's say something happens in field 5, or like we heard discussions what's going on in T-ball. That's got to stop, okay? And there's no way someone can patrol that at all positions. What they're doing now is they're handing out, like the umpires come in, they're giving them the baseballs. Guys are checking out slings, you know, they're signing in, and at the end, when the game ends, they're handing the score sheets, and they're getting paid, signing off on the pay. The FD's getting a check or a cash amount from Wendy and signing on how much they get, and all that stuff is happening in addition to all that. It's just not where we've evolved. I don't think somebody can do that one person effectively. And if they do get called into a field director, they got to go there, okay? And look at our park. That's a hard thing to do. And you can't be proactive in those T-balls we talked about last night.
I like exactly what you're saying, because I think somebody's post should be at the equipment room, handing out balls, handing out pay, signing over from Wendy, doing their thing. That's an FDA. That we should pay. FDs are us. If you want to be an FDA, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name, Jessica and Rory, you know, and everybody else wants to be FDAs. That's public. That's them. Yes, they're handling money. They're signing for it. If we have an issue, we got to deal with that. But the FDs should be the FDs, like, you know, he's saying, we're FDs. That's what
And then
we
what
do.
happens when we got a work conflict? Someone comes in and says, who can take my slot?
Then
Nobody
she takes
does.
it, I take it, he takes it, we switch.
It
I mean,
just-
isn't that how it's
does-
done in the past?
But then it doesn't always happen that way. I mean, we're left empty-handed, you know?
Listen, I'm still trying to defrost from the concept I was just at.
So now we're gonna have 3 people, we're gonna have an FD,
No,
an
no, 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 no,
FDA,
no,
and an
no,
umpire?
no.
No.
I think, in my opinion, I think the umpire brings a lot of value if you pay him whatever a game fee. You know, he is supervising the umpires. He could be in field 5 and something happened in field 6, the FD steps in. It's a way to get more feet on the street, more coverage, and see what's going on.
What he also could be doing, and this is something that's gotten away from our park, is our FD used to get there early enough and go to every field game, introduce himself to the manager, whether you knew him or not, say, I am here, if there's any issues, you know, please. He makes his presence known, okay? These managers this fall, they had no clue who the field director was at any night, at any given time. They had no clue about stopping games. It was a free-for-all. We need to get back to stability at our park. These managers and everybody needs to know that there's a process. There's a field director. That field director needs to be known, make his presence known to every field. Even field 5 can be told, listen, if there's an issue, stop the game. I'll be right over and just walkie-talkie me. You know, we all have walkie-talkies. Text me, whatever the fastest way, and I'll be right over if there's an issue. You know, no game should be penalized or decided because of an issue that could have fixed it. You know, and that's what we have to get back to.
Yeah, but that's...
That paid, if it was a paid position,
I think we
I
have
think
to.
a lot more people would come to the park and do it.
Yeah. When there's Casey out there, if you got paid, would you mind doing that for a night? Yeah. Listen, great. You can donate it back, but I mean, I look at it as another payout. You know, pay someone an payout and to do that.
You also need to make sure that the managers know that the FD cannot overturn what an umpire calls. There's a lot of times where I was FD and I'm like, oh, the umpire's calling this, and there's nothing I can do about that. It is up to the umpire. They are in control of their field.
Honestly, that's probably going to happen the majority of the time,
Right?
and
But I don't think they understand that you can't.
you're just going to have to tell them when that time happens, because it still happens to this day. It's happened how many times, Ed? Numerous of times, but I mean, that's what you're there for, is to really come up and just, you know, be clear and concise. Listen, this is a judgment call. We can't, that's not what I'm here for. I'm just here to tell you what the rule states and make sure that it's being followed.
The parents don't know. The parents think that they can just call it, and they think that they're gonna call it, and they're gonna come over and overturn it. So the managers need to tell the parents in the beginning before the game starts, and that's one of the rules, that they can.
Honestly, I'd love to have all parents come to an umpire.
Agreed. Yeah, a lot of this stuff can get clarified when you have a team meeting and it gets expressed to the parents about that. So let's do this moving forward. We will accept people who are interested in being field director roles. All right. Since it is money handling, I guess we'll kind of go through the interview process of that. Go ahead.
Just to be clear, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If you know, like, if we find out that it's not a problem and there's no conflict or nothing, I don't care. We can all pay FDs, do whatever you want. I'm just you know, it's
Yeah,
just an opinion. I don't want
that's why we're here to
Yeah,
discuss it.
yeah,
In my opinion, if Rory wasn't a coach and wanted an FD position, and I told Roy no, and I wanted to pay myself, that would be a conflict.
Got it, okay.
But to me, in my opinion, we don't have people pounding on our doors.
Okay.
You know, that's why we do the. go
I
ahead.
just showed him, I looked at the Florida statutes, the applicable ones here, and compensation of directors. Unless the articles of incorporation or the bylaws provide otherwise, the board of directors may fix the compensation of directors. I don't believe the bylaws or the articles of incorporation state otherwise.
I mean, we're not here to line our pockets. We're here to make sure we're
And
staffed.
like I said, I'm still not accepting.
Okay,
There's nothing in here saying that we're getting paid for doing what we're doing right here. It's for doing the additional work of the field directors after your second time doing it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Wendy, did you want to say something? Now that you're new paralegal?
Well, number one, your bylaws do not state that, and I just took a 2-hour 501c nonprofit, and you can make money. If you go and you're not performing as a board member, you're performing another position in the league, then you're allowed to make money per the class I just took, and it was a 2-hour class stating that that was something you could do. Is it recommended? No, because of the fighting that would take place. But you can, and I had the lady's email that did the class, and we can email her with any questions because I paid for the class. So we can put it out there, but in the class, they said, if you're not a board member at that time and you're performing a second duty that is needed, then you're allowed.
You might have just saved me some research because the last thing I was going to say was on the very front page of our bylaws. It says, notwithstanding any other provision of these articles, et cetera, the corporation shall not carry on any other activity not permitted to be carried on by an organization exempt from federal income taxation under 501c3. So I was going to research that to determine whether or not getting paid was a violation of 501c3. But since you just said that, I probably don't have to.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yes.
And that's what I was talking about. If it's offered to other people, then we're covered. You know,
Yeah.
and like you said, if he wants to do it, if we don't have enough, that's different.
I mean, if you've got a background of theft, we don't want you handling cash, even though you're signing off on it. So, fair enough. Kim?
We also have to make sure that I usually make that schedule. I have no problem making that schedule, but I also need to, the reason that when we're looking at the individuals, we have to make sure that those are individuals where there's not going to be issues if they're making judgment calls. But if you're saying the umpires, you know what I mean? Like it,
I can't be field director when my kid's playing.
you can, well, yeah, and I mean, if I have to go out on a field and, Max is over playing with Coach Chris, which he doesn't do anymore, then I can't make that judgment call because there's a conflict of interest there. So we've got to look at individuals that we know there's not going to be a conflict of interest, that have a good reputation in our park and are respected in the park for the positions or the judgment decisions they're going to be making.
FDA is one thing, but for a field director, they have to be knowledgeable in the game of baseball at our park. And Cal Ripken, they have to be able to make a decision, the correct decision. It can't just be anybody. You can't just throw anybody into that spot and expect them to know the answer and put them on the spot like that, and then they come up with the wrong answer. It's going to create a bigger mess. So another point also, if I'm on practice that night, I'll be field director or whatever. If I'm practicing and there's games going on, I'll be a field director. I'll get there early enough. I'll go talk to all the managers before my practice. I don't have a problem doing it. So we can look at that too. The people that do have experience. Look at, when we do the schedules, I'm just saying this. Yeah.
Well, I would just say this. I think we need to have an umpiring background. And let's just, for this season, see how it works. Have a full-time umpire per night. That will be your field director who will work in conjunction with the FDA. And if it doesn't work, then don't do it for future seasons. And this person can walk around and witness behavior, coaches towards their umps. How's the umps performing? Let's say Roy doesn't like the way a guy's officiating and he puts it on his sheet, and then all of a sudden that gets turned in, he can pick it out, you look at it, and all of a sudden, hey, I want you to watch this guy during this game. We can, work smartly that way. So I think for this season, let's try it. you know, and if it doesn't work, you know, I mean, what should we pay them, $40 a night? Does that sound fun? Casey, is that fair?
And remember, our rules, especially the way we're doing it, are different than the other parks' rules
Yeah.
at different age levels. So they have to be knowledgeable of our rules.
Yeah.
You know, with the leadoffs we're doing now, and I'm not, you know, with the drop 3 and 10, they're not doing it anywhere else, but we're doing it. You know, that's what I'm talking about. They need
Yeah.
to.
So I like to, for this season, as a trial basis, make a motion to have an umpire be on staff for each night.
You good with that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed. That'll be the umpiring schedule. So, and the other thing I want to do is let's talk about umpiring real quick. I mentioned last night in a workshop, we didn't have workshops until I became president, and then when I was president, we had workshops, and that was the number one topic, umpiring quality. And I've not heard a lot about umpiring quality. I've heard about not having 2 umpires in 10U, you know, some little stuff about not knowing the details, all communication stuff. I've not heard any issues on that. But I think what would be helpful is if we had like a little umpiring committee, somebody that's been here for a while, and, you know, whoever the umpire is tonight just kind of looks at our umpires and rates them, you know, and helps out the commissioner. To me, there's no bigger job right now than the commissioner in trying to improve our coaching, which I think is the number one issue in our league. Talk about giving them the information to be an effective coach and training or camps, whatever. But, I mean, what does everybody think about having a little rating system for umpires?
You said it worked in the past, right?
Well, we never really had it in the past. I mean, like, let's say like Ed's been here forever and a guy like Miguel's been here forever. What if they came together and, you know, here's Casey back there, and Casey, you're an excellent ump. Ed, you're an excellent ump. You know, Kyle, you're a good ump. But there's umps out here that have been in our league that people complain about. And we don't want to black mark them, but you have to, almost like an employee rating system. When you have an employer, you got to rate somebody.
The issue with that, I foreseeing is we don't get enough feedback from all the coaches. All right, it's the same like onesies and twosies, and some of it makes sense, but some of it you can kind of like, you know, throw to the side. You know, okay, you made bad call, whatever the case may be. They don't go into detail on why they think this person was a terrible umpire or why they are a terrible umpire. We implemented the system for those sheets at the concession stand. How long ago, Wendy? 2 seasons ago? 2 or 3? Something like that. And last season, did we get any?
Well, I mean, we write on the back of the score sheet, right? Don't you get those, Glenn, if someone has an issue with an umpire?
Sometimes, yes. But we created those sheets to have good and bad feedback, you know, to kind of help with the coachmanship of the younger umpires, because that's where most of our
To be honest, this is the first time I've ever heard of a sheet.
Those sheets were there when I was umpire-in-chief. When I first started, that was one of Glenn's first, you know, because he was kind of like my partner in crime, because I decided to help out and take on the role. And they've been there ever since, and slowly just declined. Nobody filled them out anymore.
The biggest thing, I mean, Kyle's exactly right. The last 2 seasons, it's the same complaints from the same coaches. You know, the umpire's the reason we lost. This is their, you know, it's not, you know. And when you have the same people complaining all the time, it invalidates everything they're saying. You know, it's like in one ear and out the other. So I haven't, truthfully, this last fall, I had some parents complaining, but just like I said, it's in one ear and out the other, because I've seen the guy, I've stood there and watched. I watched the same game they complained about. You know, and I've had, when I was coaching and managing, I had calls that I thought were, but he's doing the best he can. You know what I mean? Maybe he just didn't see it. I'm doing the best I can.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to, that's it. When I walk out the fence, it's over. You know, I'm not going to complain about the guy. So my biggest thing with the umps, and I think realistically the sheets may work, but I think you're going to get the same 3 people and you're going to see the same names. Oh, it's like, the biggest thing is let's make sure that Danny doesn't put me in a situation, like I said, where I for any reason at all, I don't have an ump. You know, that's and it was working out great, and I was even trying to get Danny to do the softball, because I mentioned that to, she disagreed with me, but I tried to get, you know, that on board until
very
those
happy with my
tournaments,
softball.
till we hit those tournaments, and maybe his hands were tied. Like I said, I'm not faulting him either. All I got to do is solve a problem. You know,
I think, let's say we find somebody who wants to be this umpire that's on staff, pay him to do that. I mean, he can kind of be like a mini in chief at the park as well. So let's say somebody says, hey, referee ABC needs to be worked. If he's on duty that night, that can be a bug in his ear. Hey, please watch field 2 where he's on it and see if it's justified, or maybe he needs some retraining, or maybe it's this coach and we need to approach this coach as a board and say, you know what, we watched him on 2 separate occasions and you're wrong. He's doing his job.
That would be awesome. For me, that would be awesome.
Because I think if you look at a commissioner, I mean, what's more important than trying to improve the coaching in our league, and seeing how they're running a practice. And although it's still under your cup, let's say umpiring, you could spend time on more of the coaching aspect and let this guy do the officiating stuff.
If I have an issue, I can say, hey, this is the guy's name. He's been, umpiring on these fields. Can you please keep an eye on this guy for me?
Yeah.
Let me know what you find.
And exactly. So, maybe we have a guy like that or two who is a candidate for that. He can kind of help schedule who's going to be the umps as well in terms of the ump that night. So we can do some more details in January. I wanted to propose that, and if anybody have objections, let me know.
Yeah, I think you should bring it up when the manager's meeting. I think the big thing is just getting feedback from the coaches, and it's more than just, oh, this guy stinks. Why does he stink?
Specifics.
Yeah, get into details on, is he out of position? Is it his lack of knowledge of the rules? What is it?
Right. No, you're right. Not I lost the game. That's not a complaint. You lost the game. And we have this thing about the strike zone. I tell my kids all the time, the strike zone is going to vary. As long as the ump is consistent with the strike zone, so be it. So if it's 2 inches beneath your knees, if both teams get it, that's a strike zone.
Yeah, I'll be mad at myself if I walk out of here for not talking about umpires. And in no way, shape, or form am I volunteering for any position. Let me clarify that. To me, the biggest problem with the umpires is that we outsourced umpires this season. All right. I love Danny to death. I've known him for a long time. He does an excellent job. However, he is all over the place. He's all over South Florida. Mm-hmm. We have never had an issue at Willows with umpires like we had last season. Not even close. Went to Danny. Danny's priority number 1 is Okehele. It is. Okehele has 2 adult umpires for every game from 8U up. Okay? That eats up a lot of umpires, a lot of really good umpires. Meanwhile, we're stuck at 10U games with 1. We had way more kids umpiring 8U this season than I've ever seen. The only solution that I see, personally, in my opinion, is you go back in-house, you get an umpire-in-chief, somebody that's willing to develop umpires, the same way a baseball manager develops players. And I think that you have, if you look around our league, you have people that are qualified for that position.
I second that. Can I second that? I second that because I know we talked about it last night, but I actually made a couple phone calls and Okehele never had a 10U game with 1 ump. And no fault, just like...
They never had an 8U game with 1 ump.
8U, yeah, either one. And what I was saying was, it's human nature. It's not Danny's fault. If his home base, let's call it his home base, is Okehele, he's going to make sure they're happy. That's just the way this works. You want to say something before you leave?
No. Have a great night. I'll help you out later.
Okay.
Let's say Roy, you too.
It's no fault of his own. It's just human nature. He's gonna just like, you're gonna protect this first because this is your main source, and then you're gonna do what best you can everywhere else. And he probably was. It just didn't work out for us. And, that was my biggest thing, is not having enough umpires. And that was that, and the scheduling, like I said, was my 2 biggest,
Yeah, I mean, he did it in spring, did he not? Did Danny do our schedule in spring?
No.
It was in spring.
It was
in Cal, yeah.
The fall was the first one. It was his first one, and that was what made it look bad.
Yeah, like I said, to me, I've seen guys in our field that are travel umpires, guys that are in high school, and it's good to get that exposure. I didn't hear but 2 tournament weekends about 10U, you know. I think there is a way we can bridge the gap. The other thing, he's got connections. He's got a deep umpiring pool, and to tap into that is nice. And, you know, my concern is we're going to go start doing our big summer tournament. You better have umpires for summer tournament, you know. And Ed can shake his head. Yes, he knows when we started tournaments, people come in and say that your umps have issues on your tournaments, you know. So I'm immune. I didn't hear anything about 10U except for this 2 weekends. So when you're saying one umpire, I mean, was it those 2 weekends that you're talking about?
Multiple.
No, it was quite a bit.
Multiple games.
Yeah, it ran for 2 weeks almost. It was a bunch of games.
Yeah.
Any weekend that had a tournament going on
Yeah.
in South Florida.
It was bad. It was bad.
It was the O'Healy tournament and the Seminole Bomb tournament.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Our last week of the season, and
It was just those 2 weekends?
There was also week games. There were week games that had happened.
Yes.
There was
Why is it just 10U?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, we had.
Because 8U only has one.
If I have an option,
If you're limited to one,
umpire a high school game or a 10U game,
Mm-hmm. Or you're,
high school game.
mm-hmm.
Or I'm taking a tournament game where I can get 3-4 games in at one field as opposed to coming out to Willows and getting one game.
Have we given Danny a list of these are our Royal Palm umpires?
yes.
We do.
Yes.
Yeah, he didn't use
Yeah.
it. I mean,
Mhm.
there was,
There were a lot of guys that didn't get utilized.
yeah, there was a
He
bunch.
contacted me a lot, and I was unable to help him out a lot this
Mhm.
season. But there were a lot of guys that did not get involved.
I mean, a slew of them. I had all the bumps.
I mean,
Crazy.
I will tell you, doing the umpire schedule is a real pain. And that was one of the reasons why I couldn't do it anymore, because with the military leave and everything else, sometimes it constricted. So, like getting called away for hurricane duty, I can't contact anybody for those 3 or 4 weeks, however long I'm gone. So, but I will say, doing the schedule, you have to outsource. And that's why I did choose Danny, because he was my go-to guy when I needed somebody, and he was always there. And just like Chris was saying, you know, he has a big outsource. If we lose Danny, we're gonna lose a lot of other.
So
Quality umpires.
I'm not saying
I will
let's
say
get rid
that.
of Danny.
I'm not
I think
saying-
we
I'm not
need
saying
to-
that either.
I think we
And
need
I'm
to,
not
like-
saying that's what you're saying either, Casey.
I think we need.
I don't want to burn that bridge at all.
I don't want to burn the Danny bridge at all, because I really don't. I really do like Danny. I worked with him a lot during All Stars because I was running All Stars and stuff and coordinating with him and stuff. But I think we should go back to the way it was, where if
We need
I'm
help.
just using your name, if Kyle's our umpire in chief, he can reach out to Danny
Right.
to get some. But I think we need someone that cares about our park first.
Like a liaison, whatever.
Yeah.
Or an umpire in chief, junior.
Like our own
assistant.
umpire in chief that is, you know, just like Danny, that puts us first, you know, and then, yeah, we'll help him. I don't want to burn that bridge. We got to do this
No,
like
yeah.
real walking on ice type stuff.
And
But
just the
I
same
don't
if he
think
needs
Danny's
somebody-
going to have a problem with it, you know, because he's not losing anything.
I
He's
think,
absolutely not losing nothing.
Yeah, I have to reach out to Danny on a different issue I want to talk to him on, but I think maybe just sit down and have a meeting, because I think what we're talking about is pretty reasonable. I think there's a way to mend it and,
Yeah.
and make everything work.
This is an appropriate question, if I'm privy to this information, but what does Danny benefit from being umpire in chief of both parks?
Nothing.
Is he paid?
No, that's what I mean. He's not going to lose anything.
So if we were to go to our own umpire in chief to take the scheduling issues away from Danny, where now Danny can focus on the one monster park that he already has,
Mm-hmm.
and
We don't have an umpire in chief. Is there someone you know that has as many of his umpiring that people aren't going to complain about again? That I don't have to listen to for like I did for 2 or 3 years.
any umpire in chief's gonna be complaining about.
Now I'm talking about some of the umpires that were staffed on the games. Like,
I
why is this
didn't-
guy ump on my game again? Those comments we don't hear anymore.
Just didn't tell you.
You don't hear comments about bad umpires anymore?
Rarely. I don't.
This is
Chris, I think they do down there at the
yeah, on fall season. There
complex.
was,
They do.
yeah.
We don't hear it up there.
Well,
You had good umps.
I can tell you in these workshops, that's usually item number one.
I'm sorry I missed the meeting, guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was one of the things I was talking about, and I have talked to a couple people, and I have one gentleman that I've been talking to, but I don't want to approach him anymore unless we're going to go with our own head umpire, and I got to get him with Danny. We got to talk to Danny first. You know, I don't want to burn any bridges, but I don't see Danny getting pissed off at all because he's not losing anything at all. He's not losing nothing. It's actually making his job easier.
I think, I don't know. Ed, you've been there in the
This is the
park.
meat of it, right?
How's the umpiring been on fields 12, field 4 and 3 and 2?
Pretty good ever since the Kenny boys left.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who the Kenny boys are.
All right, I'll tell you what, we're going to, go ahead.
I think the whole problem with the umpires this fall was just communication. That's all it was. I don't think Danny should have, I don't know, his list was, he didn't have the list, honestly. He screwed up because there was times he was calling for umpires and maybe I should have told him because I didn't know like Tyler wasn't being used. What about Ed? Was he being used?
As far
Did
as
you
I
see
know.
him out there? No,
Yeah, I
no.
mean, he's asked me for Ed's number quite a few times.
Yeah.
and-
You know, I know, and I was doing a lot of games for them, but those 2 tournament weekends, I was coaching. You know, so that was, you know, Kyle and I were, you know, coaching instead of umpiring that weekend. So you lose two umpires just on that. We do have a lot of umpires at our park. I think it's just having that liaison might be the way to go, you know. And
think
listen,
so.
if I have to do it for the spring season, I could be that person. I have a really good relationship with Danny. I talk to Danny every week about travel umpires and this and that. You know, if there's an issue with umpires, if he's short on umpires, if we have umpires at our park that are not getting used, just tell them to come to me and I'll talk to Danny and I'll get them going. I think it's just a simple communication problem. I think that's all it is.
I think you're right, and let's do this. Let's all digest and think about this and come back in January. I think a liaison may be a good way, or whatever you want to call it. Let's think about that and get this finalized in January.
Well, Chris, you said you're talking to Danny anyway, right?
Yeah, on a
And Ed,
different
you
issue.
talk to Danny a lot. So between now and January, talk to him and see if we can get those communication issues ironed out. So come January, we can make a decision one way or the other.
And I have someone, like I said, who's interested in doing it. So also find out if he'd have a problem if we had our own chief umpire that will work hand in hand with him. Because it's going to make us look better to our parents, to everybody else, if our head umpire is here all the time, because he spends a lot of time at Okehele. Our head umpire spends a lot of time at Okehele right now. You know, it's appearance. It's all appearance.
Just a heads up, I don't know who the person is that you're referring to, but that person needs to be very knowledgeable in umpiring. He needs to know all the rules top to bottom. I'm just throwing that out there.
You ask Danny a question, he'll tell you in 2 seconds what it is by a rule. Yeah, he's backwards and forward.
You've met him. He's sitting right behind you.
Oh, Wendy? She, you mean she? Oh, okay. Well, let's move on real quick. Trophies. What are we doing in spring? Chris, what's the rule say? Let's be done in 5 minutes here.
Just says all players in T-ball and 8U receive participation trophies at the end of each season. All other divisions only receive them per the discretion of the board of directors.
So softball gets participation trophies as well. And so, Glenn, we're doing what we'd say 10U and up is first and second only, correct?
10U and up is first and second, yeah.
So I guess in the manners.
That's how it has been.
Yeah, it's
That's how it has been.
Okay, well, let's reiterate just in case there's no false expectations.
Hey, can we up our game on the trophies for the older kids and do rings?
Yeah,
Can we do what? What did you say?
Rings.
rings, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
That'd be cool.
yeah. Those trophies break by the time you put them in your car anyway. All right, double, DDs are very important. We're having a lot of information on them. To me, it works best if somebody has just left that division to be a DD. All right, I know Bruce pitched in and did great in 12U, but it helps if you come from there. If we can find somebody like Rolf, Chris, I don't know if you know anybody who just moved up to 15U, that'd make a good 12U DD. So don't need an answer now if you want to digest and
Okay.
let Glenn know. meeting establishments. Right now, the way the bylaws are written, the president calls for the meetings. And as in any corporation, you need somebody to be that guy, you know, the GOAT, whatever you want to call it. You know, who's going to be the figurehead to do that? I think if everyone starts calling meetings, in my opinion, it leads to chaos. Not everybody wants to meet 5-6 days a week. I think that if the majority of the board wants to have a meeting, the president should call it. So all of our rules are written where majority rules. So if you want to put an amendment that if the majority of the board wants to call for a meeting, it should be done.
Real quick, before you speak up, Glenn, we're able to change that. You know, unless the articles or incorporation or the bylaws say otherwise, it's the president who calls the meeting. So if we can change the bylaws so that, let's say, a majority of the board wants to have a meeting, then the meeting is called.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit of research on this today, looking to see what is like the most common practice, and it is majority. So I think what Glenn, what you had referenced before is like 2 members.
2 or
calling-
more.
Okay. I wouldn't go that. I wouldn't vote for that, but a majority, 4 of the 7, sure, I'm fine with that.
All right, I'll make a motion to put in our bylaws that the majority of the board calls for a meeting. That shall be done.
I second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right.
Another change.
If we replace a board member, Ed, the old board, what was some of their favorite sayings from the old board? Do you remember what he used to say? Table it. Table it. When does this board table it outside of umpiring? We address it head on. We've got 2 houses of Congress that are known for tabling in Washington, D.C. All right? To me, if we lose a board member, I feel there's plenty of nominations to get him replaced. Glenn, you wanted to recommend of putting in a minimum time. I think I go back to the old board. That made my skin curl when I used to hear table it. You know, to me, whoever gets voted in is only for that period of time, and then they're subjected to the open elections in the following May. Go ahead.
I agree with everything you said, except for, I think for any position, be it affirming someone you're appointed, or be it, you know, interim board members, which I have no problem with that. This was great. I think it's great. It's just the process. Until I showed up that night and you said Kyle, I had no idea that's who you were picking. I had no idea. And it's human.
You were on the same text that I was that Bruce resigned.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's human nature. Why? I mean, Kyle's sitting right there. I'm going to say, no, that guy sucks. I don't want him. I'm not going to say that.
That's why we have an open nomination process.
You could have nominated someone too. Any of us could have
Right.
nominated someone.
But what I'm saying is, it's just like you say who you're going to do to give people time to think about it and digest it. It's like a shock thing. Why are we keeping this stuff, you know, what's 30 days? What's the difference in you being here now, or what is it, 28 days or
I'll tell you,
whatever?
there's a big difference. He's a financial officer now. Getting him signed on all the documents, getting the equipment.
You can do it between December and January. You eliminate the shock to make, nowhere do I know that you show up and say, hey, I'm naming that guy, let's vote for him right now. It's usually you know who's running, you know everybody has time to see what's going on.
Now, how the process works, and this is not the first time somebody's resigned in process, is just how it occurs. And Steve guided us through the process. Anyone can be nominated, they come up and say their piece, and then once all potential applicants or nominees say their piece, and the board votes on who's the interim board member.
Well,
I mean, I don't see the need in prolonging it.
well, what's the problem with, like, when did you decide Kyle, that morning?
No, I don't know when I decided.
Well,
But obviously, you got the same notification that I did.
And had I said Kyle, I would have put it out on the board thread. Hey, I'm thinking about Kyle. Everybody, here's time to think about Kyle. It gets rid of the shock thing.
So this sounds like more of a communication problem between you.
Right, absolutely. Between the whoever's nominating somebody. I mean,
It's not the process, it's a communication
Right.
problem.
right. I mean, I don't know any board anywhere where someone shows up and say, hey, I pick him right now. What do you say, guys? I guarantee you they've thought about it. I guarantee you everybody on the board has known about it.
Did you have someone you had in mind nominated that day?
No. Nobody.
And you, I understand that what you're talking about, the whole shock thing,
Right.
quote unquote, but, and I know it's human nature not to vote no on
Right.
someone that you're friendly with,
Right.
but that's your responsibility here on the board. Your fiduciary duty is to do what you think is best. So if you didn't think Kyle was the best man for the job, despite the fact you were shocked, or just because you were shocked because you didn't think you had enough time to think about it, you could have voted no.
No,
And you
I
could have
would
not-
have
and you
not,
could have nominated
that's
someone
not
else.
what I'm talking about. That's
I'm
not
just saying
even
that
what I'm
I don't think the
proposing.
process. I will say this. I think what you're talking about is this, and I would agree with you. This might be different, though. I think I would like, potentially, Chris, to have the agenda for our meetings earlier and the agenda posted on the website, because there was, no one knew about the open board position, right? Granted, I know it's up to us. It's up to us to decide who to vote on it.
was decided, we all got the same text.
No. I'm not disagreeing with you there. I just think in general, it'd be nice to have the agenda posted on the website at least the day before, and so that people know what's on the agenda to determine whether they want to show up for the meeting or not.
Right, and there's no surprises. It's like, I want to vote for the same guy as you, but I'd like to know who I'm voting for. I
No,
mean-
but by the way, I'm not saying that the agenda would have said
Right,
voting
right.
on
And
open
I
position.
think-
It wouldn't have said Kyle's name on it or
Right.
anything. So
I think that should have
wouldn't
been
change that.
something, some communication in here,
Yeah,
because we're supposed to be a board.
I don't know when it came to Kyle, whatever. I know that I work, like you work for a living. So when something happens, we like to move forward quickly. And there's no, I don't know when it came to my mind, to be honest with you. But as soon as someone resigns, there's always a thought right away, who can replace them.
Maybe you just have it where as soon as somebody resigns, you put it on the website saying, hey, we have an open position, this position is open, and what we want to.
You can't, because only we vote for that. It's.
Yeah, but people can
But they
still
can be
nominate
nominated.
somebody.
Yeah.
But you can put open nominations up there, say, we have an open board meeting, and if anybody
I don't
has any
think you can for
nominations, think
interim.
about it. Whatever, whenever, I would say whenever, if you do text in that situation and say, I'm thinking about nominating such and such, there should be no discussion about that person on the
No.
text.
No, I'm not saying that.
I know, I'm just
Yeah, it's just communication.
clarifying, making sure, okay, hey, this is the person who I'm nominating, you can think on it, and we'll talk
Right.
about it at the board.
I don't think it needs to be
meeting.
a rule. That's just more of a, hook me up, give me some little more notice. That's all.
Right, I mean, work together. Does that make sense? You know, we're all.
I guess.
It doesn't make sense to put it on the website then, because it's really just among.
Right.
You
It's our
can
decision,
nominate
yes.
someone.
Yes.
If Kyle quit
You don't-
today,
I
you
don't
could
know-
nominate
I don't think they
someone.
can.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to put it on the website.
I don't think
You
so.
could come in here and well, we can only vote, but you could nominate, like, say he said Kyle, but you thought Ed was better, so you nominated Ed, and then me and Glenn decided, well, we like Ed better than we like Kyle, so then we're gonna pick Ed now. So, I mean, you can nominate whoever you want. You guys can.
No.
But it's up to us to vote in that
They can
situation.
see.
At the end of the year, in May, that's when everybody votes. That's different.
I'm just saying, the more people know, the less,
I
I mean, if you're up here, wouldn't you want to
wanna talk about what's.
besides that minute?
I mean, anybody can, as I was reading here about the bylaws and the Florida statutes, I found this section. I mean, we could theoretically have someone nominate someone else from out there.
So somebody in the public could potentially.
Yeah, we keep it
If they wanted
open.
to, but
Yeah.
there was that meeting, how
I think one year that
how many people were
actually
there at that
happened.
meeting?
No, I think one year it actually happened,
There's a
somebody
lot,
nominated from the
actually,
crowd.
Actually, right, there was.
That's the most we've ever had.
So before we close, we'll go to open comments. Amy, did you want to say something?
Do you personally?
That's fine.
I have a couple of things, Chris, if you don't mind, real quickly. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, you too, yeah. Next meeting, we elected, he's gonna look into the, about other leagues and what we've done in the past regarding the audit, which we talked about briefly in the past, and our bylaws. And the wording is unclear. It doesn't say like it's a requirement, but it kind of like says
It
we're.
should be checked by an outside, because after finding out what entails in an audit, it's just overkill. So I think an outside firm checking our accounting should be there.
Agreed. We definitely should have it checked. Whether or not it needs to be quote unquote an audit as our rules
Yeah.
or bylaws state, we want to check on that.
Yep.
Next, I keep stressing this because I want to make sure that we actually have people, running for the board. Next time we don't have just what happened to our last annual meeting? We had like 2 people out there. So, again, per our bylaws, I'm assuming our annual meeting will be on May 14th based on how it's spelled out there. So nominations are from February 13th through April 14th. And again, according to it, it says that the elections committee, quote unquote, shall take the nominations. you're in charge of appointing
Election.
committees.
People who aren't up for renewal.
So since then, we have what, about 2 months until then?
Well,
we should
it's
put together
a
election
three-person, it's a three-person committee.
Yeah.
So,
Three
so it
spots.
could be me, I nominate Kim, and you. How about
That's
that?
fine, sure.
right.
Considering we will be off the board at that time.
We will be off the board, right?
Yes.
So we're the ones who run it and count the votes or
I'm
whatever.
totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay. But Chris, one last thing. I think maybe you should put some notice on the website about this is the nomination period and who.
When do
who
you
they
want it posted?
Well,
Quicker
no.
the better.
Sometime in the new year.
I say that we put out there at the February meeting that we will be discussing the roles and responsibilities for the vote in May and talk about nominations. So everybody knows if you're gonna put your name up to do this job, this is what you're responsible for. We're opening the floor for nominations for the next 2 months.
As long as our meeting is before February 13th, sure.
It will be, it'll be
Well, as long as we don't move it, yeah.
Right, I'm just saying we put it out there that it's gonna be discussed at that meeting. If you're interested in board position, you need to be here so you know what's being discussed and you know what the expectations
So you put it out in January for the February meeting?
They
what
can,
you're saying.
nominations could occur at the January, March, and April meetings, according to that.
Yes.
Yeah. It's fine.
February, March.
February, yeah, I'm sorry, February, March, April.
Saying nominations at the time.
What is scheduled right now, February 13th for the schedule? Does anybody have the schedule from them?
I know it's a Wednesday.
Oh, it's a Wednesday?
Yeah, I got that down here,
I
yeah.
think we're already done. Oh, no, we're practicing, so. So that would be the 12th on here, I got the schedule.
Yeah, we'd have three board meetings then for people to nominate.
They can nominate whenever, just so they know at that one meeting.
Yeah.
It's opening and these are the expectations,
Okay.
if you're interested.
All right.
It's not all fun and games.
Till you lose a finger.
It's not all about having your name up there.
Do I have my name up there yet?
Keith?
I'm Keith?
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Anything else?
No.
I'd like to motion to close the meeting?
Second.
All right, meeting's closed. Thank you.
Sorry to keep you a little longer. That's all right. Want to make sure we have